I guess I'll do a little update. This is a live update. Goes up right after I make it, even though I still have to upload videos. I'll try to go short. If I remember, before I forget, this came to my mind right before I started it. I had one of the homeless guys. Now I forget which one it was. And he mentioned something to me today. And it wasn't a big thing. But he said, now I forget who it was. And I'm not going to give the names of who he mentioned. But he said, oh, did you hear one of the cops? This is what he told me. He said a particular officer got in trouble. Whether it's true or not. And there's a reason I'm sharing this. I'm not sharing it as gossip, okay? You'll know when I'm done. He said because this particular officer was buying maybe foreclosed homes, and there was incorrect things that this particular cop, this is what the friend told me. And this last year, I actually spoke openly, and I'm not going to do it again, about some of my homeless friends, and I gave the name of one. I said, he was telling the guys for many years that a certain officer arrested him, and he wanted to buy that house that he was either renting or buying. And when he sat in the county jail and waited, by the time he got out, that same arresting officer bought the property that he lived in. Now I talked about that. That's not the reason I'm talking right now. But someone today said, oh, did you hear so-and-so? I don't bring up names of officers on the street with the guys, all right? And I thought, maybe somebody asked him to say that to me, so I wouldn't speak on that issue again, but I've not spoken on it in a long time. So either maybe it's true, maybe somebody said, ask John this, see what he said. I just said and I told my homeless friend, I said, I have not heard that. I said, if it's true, it's true. If it's not, it's not. I'm not dealing with that. I did see a lot of my friends today, and before I do any news, if I had them speak, then I wouldn't talk about news issues. Right now, the main news is there was an active shooter at the main YouTube building in California, and as I looked throughout the day on Fox and Drudge and all of them, but even CNN, as well as Fox, but CNN was even worse, about as soon as that news broke, the tragic thing that somebody else, and now we heard it was a female, that was all at every top, maybe 15 stories. Shooter, shooter, shoot, shoot, shoot. Wow, too much. And just now I listened to NPR News, and they had that one of the California representatives, might have been Jackie Spear, and I thought, oosh, because as she was speaking to the NPR person, which is very liberal news, she said, well, this is a little different. The NRA is not in here like other states. And she said, and it was a female, and I'm shocked that this woman, this representative said, so it was either she had a problem with her boyfriend, or she might have gotten fired. And then NPR said, we must state that we don't know that as of now. And I thought, the lack of discipline to go out like that and to have said that. Now, for those that follow news, the other news was the first jail sentence and conviction in the whole Mueller investigation, Bob Mueller investigation, took place today, and it was a person connected to London or something, but he pled that he lied. During the investigation, he lied about something, 30 days of jail or whatever. But I noticed that even the liberal and conservative, they didn't catch something that happened the last few days. And as far as I know, no one's spoken about it yet. And for those that follow these things, I watched very liberal news, MSNBC, the other night, or the other day when I was at my daughter's house, and they were stumped. Even the liberal analysts were stumped that Mr. Mueller, I'll talk a little bit about this whole collusion thing, but Mr. Mueller added in one of the legal filings he added a particular thing showing that the Deputy Attorney General of the FBI, a man by the name of Rod Rosenstein, gave him the authority to investigate Russian collusion. Now, even the liberals, this was on the MSNBC evening show, something with Casey or something, Casey DC, and they could not figure out why he did that. Then today, as I was Googling the news, CNN had that like as a top story. Paperwork released by Mueller, and it was legitimate to release it. It was illegal filing, and maybe the case not the Justice. It said, and a Deputy Attorney, Rod Rosenstein, gave him the authority to investigate Russian collusion. Now, when I saw CNN had that up, I'll tell you what they're doing. And then Fox put that up. Nobody doubts that the Deputy Attorney General by the name of Rod Rosenstein gave the authority for Robert Mueller to investigate Russian collusion. Nobody doubts that. But Mr. Manafort, who is being charged with particular crimes in this whole collusion thing that have nothing to do with the collusion, but his past dealings with Ukraine as a lobbyist and all these other things, he's challenging it, and he's going to go to court. Now, a lot of legal analysts think he's nuts to challenge this. Why is he challenging it? One is, when they arrested Manafort and his wife, they arrested Paul Manafort at his Virginia home, they went in like at 2 or 3 in the morning and put their hands on his wife while she was in bed. So he was being investigated. They knew, they're looking at him. There was no need. He terrified, the FBI and Mueller's team terrified that man's wife by doing that, and his family. Now, the filing that he has, he's challenging. I read some legal opinions on this, and I think he might win in the challenge. It's a little technical. But his challenge that he's going to challenge in trial is this. Deputy Attorney General, or Deputy Inspector Rod Rosenstein, he's been given this authority because he's not the Attorney General. Jeff Sessions is. But Jeff Sessions recused himself, famously, from anything that had to do with the Russian collusion thing because of statements he made before he became Attorney General. But Jeff Sessions is the Attorney General. And so when he removes himself from being the top investigative officer, he has to give that authority for that specific thing, Russian collusion, to the Deputy Attorney General, which he did. Manafort's defense is, Mr. Mueller has been looking into, and indeed is going to try to have me tried on all types of charges that have nothing to do with Russian collusion. And he does not have the authority to do it. I think the defense of Manafort is correct, because an Attorney General is the man that's in charge, okay, the top law enforcement officer of the U.S., if you will. If he himself did not recuse himself, he could have told Bob Mueller, the special prosecutor, I want you to investigate everything. But because he delegated, Jeff Sessions and delegated, or Attorney General Sessions delegated it to his deputy, he just delegated the Russian collusion. And the Deputy Attorney General does not have the authority to invest Mueller, the special prosecutor, to do anything else. Okay, that is a legal argument that makes sense. So then why did the media today, and even the conservative media, fall for the headline that read, Rod Rosenstein, Deputy Attorney General, he empowered Mueller to investigate Russian collusion? They wanted to get that in the media, because when the legal challenge comes up, most people didn't follow it like I just explained. And when the legal challenge comes up, Mueller wants the public and all the media to already have the mindset that, oh no, he was empowered by Deputy Attorney Rod Rosenstein to do what he's doing. But he wasn't. So that's manipulation. That's manipulation. That's why that happened. And as far as I know, I did not listen to talk radio today, but the more educated ones, they normally would have picked up on that. But the reason I had to go a little long on that was to show you how propaganda works. I actually saw some things that said anybody that actually bought an ad, meaning you simply put ads, pro-Trump, no Russia, nothing. Some media described that as propaganda. So if I had an ad that said, vote Hillary, and if it was the other side, they'd say that's propaganda because you're trying to influence people. And I thought, this is dangerous because when people in authority are not held to account, they do stuff like that. Now, being it's just a one-time update, I won't ever replay these again. The local situation. We had a very tragic, a double homicide in a fairly nice home development called out in the London Estates. Now, this is a school district I used to pass on my way to the firehouse in Kingsville. So it's outside of the city limits, and it's called the London School District, but it's in the county. And this is really a top crime news right now, because initially, a young couple, they were in their 30s, very nice, like, community. It was reported as a murder-suicide possible, and later they changed it and said it was a home invasion. Of course, that's a serious matter. The local police are not involved in that. That's the county. But the DA, Mark Gonzalez, of course, would be involved. So he was out at that scene. And that's very sad. We also had the mother, the man who was accused of tragically running over these two high school students. The one girl died, was 16. Elton Holmes is his name. The other girl is in serious condition. And the community has obviously rallied behind the family. And it was proper for Mr. Elton Holmes to not have been out on bond because he had this history of alcoholism and all these other things. And surely he could be a threat. So Ms. Sandra Watts denied his bond after she got some heat from the community. But the mother of Elton Holmes, he's a black man. And I share that just to say, I saw her with a nice, like, some of the old-time churches, which is fine. Maybe the more black cultural churches, a lot of the wonderful Christian women wear, like, the church hats. And I saw her in the media, and she said, my son did a bad thing, a tragic thing. She said, and I know many wouldn't agree, but she said, but it was an accident, but it's tragic, okay? And she said, but so many people hate my son. And it reminded me of a case of a police officer who was black that I was going to help his family. His name was McChester. McChester was an officer with CCPD, and I'm not bringing this up in a negative light, but he had a relationship with an underage girl, some girl that they were doing security. This was years ago. And McChester seemed like a very nice guy, and he was, I forget, in his 30s, but so then he pled guilty, and he's in prison today. But I remember seeing his family in the media, the same thing. That's why I mentioned it. Black mother and dad. The mom had the hat, and she said, my son's not a monster. And I remember from the bench, whoever tried that case, a federal case, called him a monster. And I had offered. I called his lawyer at that time and simply said, if I could help his mom and dad, maybe when they go visit their son in prison, that was McChester case. It never worked out. I said, maybe I can help them in some way. Now, the crimes, of course, that the men commit, whether Elton Holmes or... And so, we as a community, we look at a possible home invasion where people went in on purpose and murdered people. And then we also look at manslaughter and things of that nature come from Scripture, actually, the Old Testament. It teaches, that's where the law comes from, okay? It's where the foundation of law comes from. We call that moral law. But if you kill somebody accidentally, they had, I'm not going to teach now, but that's what the City of Refuge were for, which are a type of the church for my Bible students. And if you commit a manslaughter, you can be in a protective City of Refuge. And you got to stay in that City of Refuge. But if you left that City of Refuge, the manslayer, the near kinsman that can come and mete out justice, he can come and kill you for you killing his relative. And it was by accident. So there was a price to pay, but you had to stay confined in the City of Refuge. But there was only one time that you'd be able to finally get out of it, the City of Refuge. It was the death of the high priest. When the death of the high priest occurred, then you could leave the confines of that City of Refuge. Then you could enter into your inheritance. And so the City of Refuge was a type of the church and a type of Christ. All men are guilty of sin. And you flee to that City of Refuge. And you have protection by that high priest. He's alive and you're being saved by his life. But then there'll be a day when that priest dies and you go out. So both the life and the death of that high priest afforded both protection and freedom for you to enter into your inheritance. Okay? So we'll end with that. God bless everybody.